emphasis on primary sources shift from archaeological and inscriptional sources to those of the literary sources. Now, that is a very important development in terms of historiography. Now, why I am trying to highlight these aspects of historiography when we are trying to understand the economy of the period is because of certain reasons. For the earlier period, when you do not have much literary sources available, then you have the alternative sources, like you have the inscriptional records and you have the archaeological records. But then there are certain positive aspects of those sources, like inscriptional records and archaeological excavated records. They cannot be easily manipulated. But if we look at the literary sources, there are greater chances of manipulation in those literatures. Now, manipulation not in terms of changing the words or changing the writing as such which were written during those days. Manipulation means influencing the writer himself or the writer getting influenced by certain local conditions in the environments. What I am trying to suggest is that although the period of Delhi Sultanate is full of literary sources, you have whole lot of Persian documents, chronicles, but there are chances of those literatures being influenced by the state. Now, there is a reason behind it. Of course, this concept of writing chronicles came with the Turks in India. That is, the official chroniclers were appointed by the state, the sultans, and they were sponsored by the ruler to write the history of their king or their sultan. So, it was but natural that the official chronicler could not have written anything against the sultan. So, this is a kind of manipulation that I am talking about. This is a kind of biasness that I am talking about. So, whatever we study on the basis of those literatures are all right, but then we have to be very cautious. Why a particular historian was writing certain things needs to be understood. But in the case of the earlier period, that is the early medieval period, since there is an absence of the literatures, the only source available are the inscriptional records and the archaeological excavations. And in that sense, the possibility of the manipulation through human biasness is little less. Now, many historians believe that it is largely because of this fact that you do not have the literary sources available and you have whole lot of inscription and other archaeological excavations available for the period. This period is much more debatable. That is, the scope for debate increases, and that is why the history for this period or the historiography for the period is much more interesting for the students. In fact, if one gets something in a more structured form, normally it happens that we do not try to delve into the other subsidiary sources. We do not try to look at those other sources, and that has happened with the Delhi Sultanate also. What we have done over the years is that we have emphasized on those structured literary sources because these are easily available to us. So, we have not tried to look into those inscriptional records of the Delhi Sultanate with that much emphasis that we saw for the earlier period. Since here everything is available to us in a written form, in a Persian documents and in a well structured manner, we study the history of the period following those lines. And then there is a possibility of all of us getting trapped into those structures, the well defined structures, the well conceived idea with which these were written. We cannot deny that majority of the facts could be correct, but there is always a possibility of biasness in the analysis of those facts by the contemporary historians. There is also a possibility of omission of certain facts, which the historian deliberately avoids to write while he is writing the history of the Sultanate. Then there is also a possibility that a particular kind of a history was written with a particular motive. So, recent writings have